Well, good evening, folks. This is Dave Schmidt. I'm your host here again tonight on the Cosmic Connections. This is our March 9th program, and it's always a pleasure to be with you. Last week, I was in Seattle, where we had an absolutely wonderful workshop over the weekend. And then, the week before, we had taken a week off. So it's been, 3 weeks since we've been here. But there wasn't a lot of urgent or important issues that I needed to discuss or talk about. But I did say it was always nice to be back in the Seattle area. It had been 3 years since I had been there. And, that's my old home. I lived in the North Seattle suburbs for 32 years. That's where I served in the Washington State. Okay. Hold on just a second there. My headphones came out. Okay, now I'm back. My headphones came out. But I lived in the North Seattle suburbs for 32 years, and that's where I served in the legislature for 12 years. And so, obviously, I took an extra day and went up and drove around the old neighborhood, saw some old folks I hadn't seen for, probably a good 10 to 12 years, because it was 10 years ago that I moved away from Washington State, and then moved to Arizona in 2012. And then it's been almost 3 years now that I've been here in Florida. And but before I go into that, I just want to say, Blanca, how are you doing on this fine evening?
Doing well, Dave. Thank you so much. And it's nice that you got to visit some old stomping grounds. And you probably didn't realize you'd been away that long. It went that quick.
It's been 10 years. It's amazing how they go. But what's interesting is, being there is like a past life for me. And being there, I realized I had absolutely no desire or pull to want to move back there. I just, it was right just before I made the move is when I started going through my awakening process. I guess I should say that's when I made my transition from the blue pill world into the red pill world. It was about a year and a half before I moved. And in fact, it was that transition that was one of the things that kind of motivated me to move, because I realized all of my connections, all of my friends that I had were from when I was in the legislature, and that was rapidly turning into a past life that I didn't really want to be a part of. And at some point in time, I've told you I'm going to write this book, and the title is going to be Confessions of a Recovering Senator. That's my title. Right. But what I will be recovering, I unplugged my headset here again. There we go. But what I am recovering from is basically the blue pill world. I'm recovering from that world that I lived in as a politician, as just a normal, regular, everyday citizen who saw the world from that perspective, and then woke up into the red pill world to say, oh, gee, there's a whole different world out there. So, yeah. So, but that was that. And it was always a nice trip.
That would be an interesting book, because you've been through several transitions. But I think all of us can say that. Just when we thought we were, pretty red-pilled, then we learned some more. And so I guess the lesson learned is just to continue keeping your awareness up and look for the clues. Look for the clues for the new. The new that we're saying we want to bring in. So, yes.
Yeah. So, with that, though, I do have an announcement, because in about another month and a half, I will be moving again. I'm going to be leaving Florida. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, I got the notice from the apartment complex where I live here in South Florida, from the management of, that my lease was coming up, and it was going to be time to have a new lease for another year. And between the rent and what I pay for the slip for my sailboat, they were going to increase my cost $700 a month. The rent on the apartment was going up $400, and the rent on the boat slip was going up $300. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. This is, I won't call it highway robbery, but I am not. See, I live here by myself, and I'm very mobile. I'm in about a one-bedroom, 850 square foot apartment Now, yes, it's expensive because I live across the street from the beach, but I don't have any attachment to the beach here, and I realized that. I thought, I don't need to be here, and I don't need to pay that kind of money. I mean, I could afford it if I wanted to, but I just don't need to pay that kind of outrageous money. And I wasn't really having any attachment to my sailboat because I just wasn't out on it very much. So what I did, Blanca was one of those, and I also called two other friends, and I told them that I was going to be moving, and I didn't even say where, and all three of them, their first thought was the same place, about where they thought I would be going, or where I was thinking of going. And yes, I'm going to be moving to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And it was just ironic how all three of them had the same exact thought that that was the place for me to go. And I have an absolutely wonderful friend, Barbara Joy, who is in Sedona, and I do what is called, intuitive sessions with her. And in that time that I had with her, I was asking and inquiring about that, and they said, yes, that's an excellent place for me to go because I've got an excellent, strong support base of group of people that is there. And also they said it's one of the best places that I could be for when the funds are released because it's all coming out of a close-by situation there. So I will be probably in just about 5 weeks, I'll be starting the transition, but I have to be out of this apartment here in Florida by the end of April. And I'm going to be going to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I'm looking at moving into the Grapevine area. Now that's just right on the northwest part of, the Dallas-Fort Worth airport in that area. I've got friends that live in that area, so that's where I'm looking to go. And so tomorrow, I'm hopping on an airplane again, and I'm going to the Grapevine area for about 4 days to do some browsing and looking and shopping about where I'm going to move into. And as again, my life is very flexible and it's very mobile, so that's why I rent. I won't buy anything until I know I'm going to be absolutely settled and the funds come through. So, going to be leaving Florida in about 5 to 6 weeks, and it'll be time to be another new transition for me. But, I travel so much and I'm on the road so much that that's not a big issue. But, so, for all you good friends and folks of mine that are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I'm coming there, folks. I'm going to be there, be moving there. I'll be, settled in by the end of April. Okay? Blanca, anything else you'd like to share with us then? And you can, you were one of those three that had that initial thought.
I know. As soon as you told me what was going on, it just popped up in my head. And I think it's going to be a great place for you. Of course, I'm biased because I was born in Texas.
That's right. Okay, I forgot that.
Spent a good amount of time growing up there. I still have family there, and I think it's going to be a really good place for you to be for a lot of reasons. You travel a lot, so it's kind of central.
Yes.
You can take off east or west, pretty central.
Well,
and a lot happening. And I think as events unfold, I think Texas is going to be an important state.
Well, I fly so much, so it's always beneficial for me to, use one airline. So I build up my miles and my benefits and stuff like that. And when I was living in Arizona, American Airlines was the biggest, airline out of the Phoenix airport. So I always started using American Airlines. Well, Dallas-Fort Worth is where American is headquartered, and that is the major airline of the Dallas-Fort Worth airport, so it's going to be really easy to hop on a plane and go anywhere out of the
That's cool.
the Dallas-Fort Worth airport, because I fly American Airlines line, and I have built up so many miles that for the last year and a half, about 50 to 60% of my flights I get upgraded to first class. So yeah, I was first class on one of my 2 legs to Seattle, and then I came back nonstop, and I was first class, flying all the way from Seattle to Miami, and and I realized you can't have a longer flight in the domestic United States as you can from Seattle to Miami.
Yeah.
Those are, I mean, that's the extreme northwest versus the extreme southeast. And so it was nice,
Right.
to
Exactly.
have a nonstop flight, from there at least, and I got to fly at first class. But all right,
That's
so much
cool.
for all
Yeah.
that stuff. So
That's
and
cool.
uh, and folks, thank you. I'm already seeing a lot of the comments coming in from the folks that are living there. And I know Bob, I saw you. As always, it'll be just great to be close by you, Bob. Hold on. Uh, I know you'll probably be about 10 to 15 miles away from you at the most. And uh, let's just say, Bob, when I move in, I could use your help unpacking, and any of the other folks that are there. Okay, so all right. So, well, enough about that. So that's the next transition that's happening in my life. Well, but there's a whole lot of transition or changes that are coming up in our world. I was amazed at all the information that came out just this week from some of the excellent sources that I listen to on a regular basis that talk about the red pill world in so many ways. I mean, I listened to Barbara Marciniak and the Palladians, and their recent message that came out says expect massive changes, massive disruptions, and the old system starting to fall apart within the next month to month and a half. And then the other guy that I listened to, his name is Ben Fulford, and I subscribe to his newsletter. And Ben is probably one of the best red pill, what goes on behind the scenes in the cabal-based world sources that I know that is out there. And I'm going to be reading some of the stuff from his newsletter tonight, the recent one that he put out about 3 days ago. And others, it's just amazing. They're all saying, this is the time of the shift that we have been waiting for. This is the time of the shift of what's going to take place, where you're going to see the old cabal world is going to start falling apart. And we'll get into this in just a minute, but what it appears is what is happening and going on between Russia and Ukraine. It's all a part of the plan. Now, so before we get into the program tonight, Blanca, I'm going to give it back to you. If you would like to make any last bit comments or just some of the things you'd like to say before we start going into the program.
Well, I think from what you told me you were going to share, I think it's very appropriate because there's a lot's happened. I mean, think about it. Since we last talked, the price of oil has doubled, and we've got a kinetic battle going on the other side of the world. None of that was existing the last time we had a show. So I think go with what you had in mind. I think it's going to be really good and addressing some of the things that are going on right now, or at least how to process it and think about it. So I think we should go ahead and get started.
Okay. Yes. Oh my gosh, the price of gas. All of a sudden, I was looking at possibly would I want to drive from Florida to, to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I began to realize that after I conducted the miles and everything, it's actually cheaper for me to fly and rent a car than it is to drive both ways, knowing that I have to also spend one night in a hotel because it would be a 2-day trip. I mean, that's what the gas has gone, and we know basically what happened here. The price of gas has exploded because as soon as Biden came into office, he shut off the Keystone Pipeline, which is in Canada, which means we were basically receiving our oil from here in North America, from our own sources. And when he had that shut down, we had to go back again to being the vast majority of our oil is imported from either the Middle East or from Russia. And they again dominate those oil prices, and that's why we've seen this massive spike. That in conjunction with what is going on in Russia and Ukraine. Now, let me go in and talk just a little bit about what does this do affecting the currency exchange. Now, I had been reporting to you that the situation in Reno, they said it was very, very close, to being released, and that was going to be the early stuff. And I made a call, and I asked them, I said, well, what is going on? And I called my sources and said, did the Russia-Ukraine situation have an impact on that? And they said, yes. In essence, everything going on in Reno has been put on hold, and the largest source coming out of the Texas processing office again is going to be slightly delayed. And when I was talking to my source about that, she said she had just got off the phone with her primary sources asking that same question. And what they said, it's all a part of the plan. Russia going into Ukraine is a part of the plan, and why? Here's what we are not hearing anything at all about mainstream media from any of this stuff, and it shows you again the complete biasness that they have. Ben Fulford will tell you that Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. There are massive money laundering operations that go on in Ukraine, and these cabal-based sources use Ukraine as their money laundering center. Hello, talk about Joe Biden, President Biden's son, and all of his money that was going on in Ukraine. And do you think it's a coincidence that the president's son, the speakers of the House son, and the former presidential candidate who is now a U.S. Senator, his son, all three of them do business with energy companies in Ukraine? Hello. Not only was Ukraine one of the most corrupt places for money laundering taking place, there are massive child pornography, child sex selling operations going on in Ukraine as well. And what we were being told, those that we call the cabal, Ukraine is their headquarters. That's where it's run out of. Their complete corrupt New World Order, money dominating, global dominating headquarters is run out of Ukraine. And Putin knows that, and that's what he's going in to take down. That's one of the primary issues. The other issue is the United States has been funding these bioweapon labs. Now, bioweapons are against the Geneva Convention and what they're to do, and yet there are 8 laboratories developing bioweapons in Ukraine, and those are designed to be basically launched into Russia from Ukraine. You think Putin wouldn't go in there? This is a defensive measure. One of the best things that I heard that somebody described, this is very similar to the United States with the Cuban crisis in 1962. Russia was going to put a nuclear missile in Cuba only 80 miles away from Florida aimed at us. And do you think we were going to allow them to do that? Absolutely no. President Kennedy went on an all-out, task to stop the nuclear missiles from going into Cuba, and we would have gone to war with Russia if necessary over that. That's the same thing that's happening right now with Ukraine and Russia, because they've got these bioweapon missiles that can easily be launched into Russia in a moment's notice, and because it's so close, they can bring it in at such low range, they wouldn't be able to catch it very quickly for their anti-missile technology to take them down. This is a defensive measure. Now here's the other big thing that a lot of people don't know about what's going on in Ukraine. Technically, by the United Nations standards, Ukraine is not a sovereign country. When there was the old Soviet Union and they broke up, there were 8 independent countries that came out of that. And all of those countries, 7 of them, they registered themselves with the United Nations, and they registered their borders so that the border is known to be they registered their borders, and all those countries except Ukraine did that. Ukraine has never officially registered its borders with the United Nations. So from a technical point, Ukraine is not a recognized sovereign nation. Technically, it's still basically a province of the old Soviet Union, but then would make it a province of current day Russia. You don't hear any of that stuff on the mainstream news. It is so biased as they're trying to get, the support for Ukraine, and Russia is this evil empire that's going in and attacking. No, folks, this is all a part of the plan to take down the cabal-based, New World Order-based system. It's all for what is there. So, now, what I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to play a video that kind of outlays this powerful New World Order move, and the one guy who leads that more than anybody else, his name is Klaus Schwab. Now, I've talked about a little bit about him. He is the man that says we are here as an organization of the elite controllers of this world, wanting to create a new world order, wanting to create a one world government, and it is the United States that stands in the way. Well, there's this one guy that I watch and not. He normally is really funny because he's a great comedian, and his name is J.P. Sears. Well, J.P. did a serious video entitled, "Is Klaus Schwab the most basically powerful man in the world?" It's a 15-minute video, but let's watch this. Oh, that's the wrong one. We want to go to this one.
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us. The difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing. It changes you. If you take genetic editing, right. Just as an example, it's you who are changed. And of course this has a big impact on your identity.
Yeah. Editing your genes? Cool. I'll explain that later. But first, why do so many people consider this guy, Klaus Schwab, to be the most dangerous man in the world? Well, there's some reasons. A lot of them. You might remember Klaus Schwab as the puddle of liquefied feces who said, by 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy about it. Translated, that probably means by 2030, he'll own everything and he'll be happy about it. But how does he expect you to own nothing and be happy about it? Oh, he's got a plan. Now, I'll tell you about it in a minute. But before I do, a little bit about Klaus Schwab. He's the author of COVID-19, The Great Reset. What a grand opportunity indeed. Oh, and his book was published on July 9th, 2020. Wonder how he got it written and published that fast. It's almost like maybe he pre-wrote it before he started the pandemic. Before the pandemic started. Old Klaus is also the founder and chairman of the World Economic Forum, an organization that faces the public with very noble-sounding goals of creating a better world. Fear-mongering about climate change and disease are big goals of theirs. Welcome to Davos. Just park your private jet over there and then go inside and pretend to be concerned about climate change. Klaus and the World Economic Forum want a worldwide digital ID system that determines your access to goods and services. It would monitor your online behavior, purchases, and biometrics. It kind of seems like he just wants to do away with the whole democratic process and give all the power to the state and whoever runs the state, the deep state. But that's based on both his words and actions, so it's probably an inaccurate observation. Was Dr. Evil's character based on this reptile? Mr. Schwab writes the following. One of the greatest lessons of the past 5 centuries in Europe and America is this. Acute crises contribute to boosting the power of the state. It's always been the case, and there is no reason why it should be different with the pandemic. Nobody ever elected Klaus Schwab to anything. This all just sounds like conspiracy, doesn't it? The World Economic Forum are good guys. Haven't you seen the headlines they pay for? Go green, right? Right? That's probably right. They truly are good guys. Accordingly, you'll be excited to hear that the lineup of World Economic Forum speakers at their annual gathering of elites in Davos included such benevolent humanitarians like Xi Jinping, the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, who's currently committing genocide, Anthony Fauci, who's arguably currently involved in crimes against humanity, and Bill Gates, who's arguably currently involved in crimes against humanity, and Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, who's arguably currently involved in crimes against humanity. What a great lineup! But my favorite economic forum speaker of all time is this reptile, Klaus Schwab's top advisor, Dr. Yuval Noah Harari. Let's see what he has to say.
Data might enable human elites to do something even more radical than just build digital dictatorships. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself. Because once you can hack something, you can usually also engineer it.
Elites hacking organisms and re-engineering life itself? Well, he's not talking about doing that to people, is he?
Now, in the past, many tyrants and governments wanted to do it, but nobody understood biology well enough, and nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. Neither the Gestapo nor the KGB could do it. But soon, at least some corporations and governments will be able to systematically hack all the people.
Well, I guess he was talking about doing that to people. All people, to be specific.
And if indeed we succeed in hacking and engineering life, this will be not just the greatest revolution in the history of humanity. This will be the greatest revolution in biology since the very beginning of life 4 billion years ago. For 4 billion years, nothing fundamental changed.
Not playing God, are you? Because that usually works out super well.
Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds.
Oh, you are playing God. Say more.
Evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds. The IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud, these are the new driving forces of evolution.
Gosh, you wouldn't by chance have a plan in place on how to control people with your cloud technology, would you? And that plan isn't by chance already being implemented, is it?
Today, we have the technology to hack human beings on a massive scale.
Oh, so you could implement it.
In this time of crisis, you have to follow science. It's often said that you should never allow a good crisis to go to waste.
Sounds familiar. And I guess you are implementing it already. Didn't anyone bother telling this guy not to say any of this out loud on camera? It's a lot of evidence.
Surveillance. People could look back in 100 years and identify the coronavirus epidemic as the moment when a new regime of surveillance took over, especially surveillance under the skin. My brain, my body, my life, does it belong to me or to some corporation or to the government or perhaps to the human collective?
This guy's revealing the whole plan. He's going to ruin it. The World Economic Forum, out for the good of humanity. You'll own nothing, not even your own DNA, if we have our way. Now for some additional fun facts about Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum. They've got a Young Leaders program, which is a 5-year indoctrination program into their principles. The goal of the program is to create world leaders who don't answer to their people because they don't care about them. They answer to their bosses at the World Economic Forum. Graduates of the program include admirable world leaders that are suspiciously in lockstep with the Great Reset, such as Justin Trudeau, Francis Macron, and Mark Zuckerberg. Sponsoring partners of the World Economic Forum's Young Global Leaders program have been the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Google. I wonder why Google censors and shapes information to be in exact support of the World Economic Forum's narrative. Oh, another fun fact. The World Economic Forum is predicting a worldwide cyber attack. I'm pretty much a wizard at predicting the things I'm going to do, too. The very concerned Schwab believes the cyber attack could bring a complete halt to our power grid, transportation, hospital services, and to our society as a whole. The World Economic Forum then simulated the cyber attack. Simulated or planned? I'm not sure, but they said it was a simulation, so it's probably best to just believe them. Oh, also the World Economic Forum, along with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, hosted Event 201, which oddly enough played out exactly as they planned, or simulated, or whatever. Let's move on. And here's a picture of Klaus Schwab sitting in front of his statue of Vladimir Lenin. I wonder why he's got a statue of one of the most murderous world leaders in history. Lenin killed an estimated 5 million people. And finally, remember Schwab's whole thing about you'll own nothing and be happy about it? What's the World Economic Forum's plan to make that happen? Well, it's probably nothing, but consider this. BlackRock is an investment firm with $9 trillion under management, which is a higher GDP than every country on Earth, aside from the US and China. Therefore, it turns out BlackRock has more political and financial influence than the Federal Reserve and most governments. Sounds cool, but what's the connection with a World Economic Forum? Well, again, it's probably nothing. But BlackRock CEO Larry Fink is also just a board member of the World Economic Forum. Well, that's super convenient, and probably just a coincidence. Is the World Economic Forum and BlackRock colluding in corporatism, where an unelected corporate elite dictates top-down to the population? Well, they couldn't be doing that because they'd have to infiltrate the government, which they haven't done. Except for, in one of Joe Biden's first appointees once he took office, he named Brian Deese to be the director of National Economic Council. Brian Deese came from BlackRock, where he was a global head of sustainable investing, and now he's Biden's main advisor for economic policy. But Biden's making the policy decisions, not the unelected corporate elites at BlackRock and the World Economic Forum. Of course Biden's making all the decisions. Let's not be silly. Oh, look, there's a picture of Biden in the audience at the World Economic Forum. Oh, and also Kamala Harris's chief economic advisor is Michael Pyle. He came from BlackRock, where he was a global chief economic strategist, overseeing the strategy for investing $9 trillion. Well, it looks like corporatism, but it's probably not. But if it was, it would actually be a viable strategy for BlackRock and the World Economic Forum to own everything and for you to own nothing. Oh, fun fact, BlackRock is buying up single-family homes at an alarming rate, oftentimes paying 20 to 50% above asking price, so normal people like you and I can't own the homes. Now, there is an interesting pattern to all this. You know how you hear about ancient tyrannical rulers who would rule over their dumb people by saying things like, yeah, if you don't do all of this slave labor and let me sleep with your wives, then God's going to make you all perish in a deadly storm. Well, God told me, and because I'm elite, I have access to this knowledge, and you don't. So you better do as I say, or you're going to die. Well, us peasants can't perceive what the king can, so we better do as he says. Go ahead and bang my wife. And thank you for doing it for my protection, King. Good old fear-mongering. A predictable pattern as old as time itself. But with Klaus and the World Economic Forum, it's climate change is going to kill you, disease is going to kill you, and a cyber attack's going to get you. So you better do as we say, or you're going to die. I don't know, the weather looks pretty good to me. Why don't you ever smile, Klaus? You look like a sociopath. No, you don't understand. We elites have access to knowledge that you don't. So you better listen to us or you're going to die. Same old fun pattern of fear-mongering. They know of the scary problems and only they have the solutions. So listen up or you're going to die. Gotcha, Klaus. Nothing new here. We see you. In conclusion to the question, is Klaus Schwab the most dangerous man in the world? Here's his top guy again.
Humans are now hackable animals. You know, the whole idea that humans have, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over.
Free will, that's over.
It will indeed be over. If you outsource your thinking to outside influences and take the easy way out by choosing obedience over bravery. Doing so makes you very susceptible to being manipulated by fear. And if this happens, you will fail at remaining a free, sovereign individual. But here's how Schwab and his friends, who sociopathically never smile, fail at their Great Reset, and you succeed at remaining a free, sovereign individual. Be guided by your own critical thinking and what your heart and soul knows is right, and choose bravery over obedience. Obedience or bravery? Outsource your perspectives or do your own critical thinking? We are in the process of either the Great Reset or the Great Awakening, and the choice isn't Klaus Schwab's. The choice is yours.
What's up, my friend? If you would enjoy the feeling of spreading the message of freedom wherever you go.
Well, excellent video, folks, and you can find that on YouTube or by J.P. Sears, where you can go that and what he has to say there. It's important for us to really know and capture what he said at the end. We are the ones that are in control, and it's extremely important that we don't allow this attempt of this new world order to take control where we fall in fear to what they want to do. The concepts of love and powerful focus is far stronger than fear. All of their efforts are based around fear, but it's important for us to understand what is developing. Now, I want to continue with this, but I want to continue the shift and the change that is beginning to take place and what we are going to probably see. I have talked about that the guy that I subscribe to his newsletter. He gives a written newsletter once a week plus a video update once a week, and his name is Ben Fulford. I've been subscribing to Ben for probably a good 4 or 5 years. I'm going to read from parts of his latest newsletter. The title is EU, the European Union, is negotiating a surrender to Russia, and the fake Biden government is doomed. Let me read. The EU, or Nazi Fourth Reich, knows it is checkmated and is trying to negotiate a surrender to Russia, multiple sources confirm. This means the fake Biden regime in the U.S. will also have to surrender or die, the sources promise. Ukraine is the head of the snake, and once it comes down, there's no globalist empire anymore. It is finished, explains an Australian Special Forces officer. The reason for this defeat is that the Pentagon and the Five Eyes nations, i.e. Australia, Canada, England, New Zealand, and the U.S., are refusing to fight Russia on behalf of the Nazi European nation. It is also clear this Russian move was planned long ago. Russian politician Vladimir Zhirinovsky knew that the war would start on 22nd of February 2022. He knew the exact date a few years back, various sources note. Whatever the case may be, it is clearly game over for the Khazarian Mafia in Ukraine. Now, Khazarian Mafia is the term that Ben Fulford uses to what we refer to as the Cabal. Talk of sanctions against Russia is also pure bluster. That is why German Economic Minister Robert Habeck says his country could not do without Russian oil and warned that a shortage in supply could threaten social cohesion in Germany. What most people don't know is Russia is the largest oil exporting country in the world. Europe gets over 40% of its oil from Russia. You notice hardly any of the European nations are putting sanctions on Russia. They're just letting it be because they know if they start putting sanctions on Russia, Russia could shut their oil off in a heartbeat and they're done. They cannot exist and function in a normal manner without the oil that comes from Russia. Now, another note. The Russian FSB is now negotiating directly with the White Dragon Society about how to replace the post-war Bretton Woods system with something that actually works for the people on the planet. When the FSB told a White Dragon Society representative that 81% of all the wars from 1945 to 2001 were started by the United States. The U.S. can do all kinds of shit and name it as history and not is paying any price for it, the Dragon Society replied. The U.S. corporate government will soon cease to exist, and good riddance. Now, folks, this is back to understanding that our current government in the United States is a corporation, the United States of America Incorporated, so it can be run and controlled by the elite. Also, he is saying, the worldwide disgust with the never-ending evil of the Khazarian Mafia means the alliance to remove them is close to final victory, Dragon family sources say. There will not be a nuclear war. A global economic crisis may be necessary to defeat the satanic cabal if both countries are nationalized. It would collapse the global system. He's talking about Russia and China being nationalized. It's time Western nations realized that their complete dominance in the global economy is long gone, is what Russian government is saying. The FSB also notes that COVID vanished from Russia as soon as they shut down the biowarfare laboratories in Ukraine. Isn't that interesting? The end of the Khazarian Mafia money laundering activities in Ukraine is also proving fatal to them, they note. Nonetheless, the Khazarian Mafia is desperate and dangerous now and is making multiple attempts to stage a nuclear terror accident. And then he goes on and he talks about, in the news recently there was this large ship that was coming from Europe to the United States, and it had 4,000 Mercedes-Benz on it. And they say that it caught on fire and the ship actually ended up collapsing and sinking into the Atlantic Ocean. But here's what's interesting. Here's what the CIA had to say about the fire. It was a hit job for sure. The Alliance used direct energy weapons from space. The energy beam hit the engine room and melted everything. There was no way to extinguish the fire. The Alliance knew there was a nuclear device on board the cargo ship that was headed for Rhode Island to be used in a false flag event in the United States. They were bringing a nuclear weapon into the United States to create a false flag nuclear event. And it was in that ship, the Alliance knew it, and they basically took the ship out. Now, the Khazarian Mafia is also hoping they can assassinate their way out of trouble. That is why Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham said Putin should be assassinated in order to end Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Here is what the CIA had to say about Lindsey Graham about that. Lindsey Graham will soon be tested positive for COVID a second time. He will self-isolate himself at home. We know that he will be arrested and undergo interrogation by the Alliance. If he reappears, he will be wearing a GPS boot. Most likely he will disappear. A cover story will be created. He crossed over the line. Now also please note, these so-called leaders have yet to pay for the fake pandemic and vaccine war crimes. In case you didn't notice, while you've been distracted by Russia's invasion, the UK government released a report confirming the fully vaccinated now account for 9 in every 10 COVID-19 deaths in England. In Canada, meanwhile, the provincial governments and military, etc., are openly disobeying Justin Trudeau attempt to run Canada into a totalitarian vaccine state. M16 sources say they have reviewed Justin Trudeau's entire history, going right back to grade school, and have concluded he's a Manchurian candidate and a traitor. Do not expect him to be around much longer. You can say the same about Emmanuel Macron of France and many others. Humanity is being liberated, and there will be no stopping it. That's a great end to the statement that is there. Humanity is being liberated from these extreme, powerful elite cabal who want to run and control our world, and there is no stopping the liberation. Now, I want to go into another article that talks about how the COVID issue was all a complete design to create an economic collapse. Now, this is a man that comes out of Wall Street, and his name is Dr. Joseph Mercola. He says restrictions on travel, vaccine passports, and rampant censorship enacted as measures to control the pandemic are all a global way to control the collapse and its aftermath. Former BlackRock, remember what JP said about BlackRock. Former BlackRock portfolio manager Edward Dowd is speaking out about the real motivations behind the pandemic, which include a global debt problem and an imminent global collapse of the financial industry. It says, looking to Wall Street may give some of the greatest clues to what Dowd says is correct. Even with COVID-19 shots so prevalent, big pharma stocks are dropping. Moderna is down 70%. These vaccine companies, their stocks should be exploding because they are making so much money off all of these mandatory COVID vaccines that they are producing, but yet Wall Street gets it. They know what's going on. They know it's not true. They know it's all a part of a false plan, and Wall Street is selling the vaccine stocks. Like I said, Moderna's stock is down 70% when it should be up at least 50% from a year and a half ago. He says the real motivations behind the pandemic, which he believes aren't about COVID at all. Instead, it's all about money, specifically a global debt problem and an imminent global collapse of the financial industry. The pandemic was the perfect cover for central banks to print money for an emergency. Under the cover of COVID, they were able to print 65% more money to keep this thing afloat, but we're at the end of days here. The debt-based financial system is unsustainable, and Dow believes it's on the brink of collapse. Restrictions on travel, vaccine passports, and rampant censorship enacted as measures to control the pandemic are all a global way to control the collapse and its aftermath. That's okay. I said, with solid data that non-COVID deaths have skyrocketed among the young people since the introduction of COVID-19 shots, evidence of fraud in Pfizer's COVID shot trials, and disturbing Department of Defense data, Dowd believes it's only a matter of time before the criminals behind this scheme are held accountable. The systems, including ever-expanding plans for digital currency, vaccine passports, and digital IDs, are in place for control and power, Dowd said, but as he said, it's all going to end up being exposed, and it's not going to be able to carry out to a fruition of what is there. It's extremely important for us, through all of this chaos that is going on and more that's going to be coming, We stay positive, we rise above the drama, and we project a positive thought perspective on what's going on out there. There's a tendency to look at the currency release of funds. And when those funds come in, because it seems like all hell is breaking loose and there's chaos going on around us, that we have a tendency to take the money and step into a survival mode about, I'm going to protect me, I'm going to protect my family and my friends, and I'm going to protect myself from all of this chaos that is going on around me. And if we do that, we end up projecting a very negative thought system out there into the process. It's extremely important that we rise above it and allow ourselves to stay in a very positive perspective. It's back to what the sources of the funds coming out of Texas said. It's all a part of the plan. All this stuff that's going on is a part of the plan to take down the cabal system. It's in our favor. Let's watch a short video about the right attitudes on the money scene.
Future is to turn your attention towards the future you would love to create. Most of us, when we feel that we're having problems with our finances or we feel limited, look at what's wrong with us. We look at what's wrong with our life, we look at the money that we don't have, and we feel a constant sense of scarcity and limitation. And the problem about that is that you will tend to get more and more of the same. Because you're giving your attention to scarcity, you get more scarcity. When you give your attention to bills, you get more bills. So if you want to change that pattern, you need to turn your attention to what it is that you would love to experience in the future. Even if it feels very difficult, very unlikely, or even impossible for you to experience that, that's not really true. When you start to give your attention gently to begin with to what you would love to create or love to experience in your life, you'll be surprised that little by little, whatever it is that you're imagining will start to happen. It's always tempting to get your attention back onto what's wrong or what's missing or what's not working well, but every time you find yourself doing that, have the courage to change direction and look towards what it is that you would love to experience financially in the future. It's way more powerful than you might imagine.
How to change your financial future. Folks, you're here, you listen to my programs, you come to my workshops, you read my newsletters because you believe what I've been involved in for 8 years in this coming currency exchange that has the ability to bring multiple millions of dollars to each and every one of us in this currency exchange. It's extremely important to remember what she just said. Stay positive, rise above it. All the drama that's going on around us, it's all a part of the plan, and it's a plan that is there to set us free. Those of us involved in the currency exchange, we get to be the trailblazers to this shift and change. This money coming in is designed to replace the current cabal-based economic system. It's designed to neuter their power and allow us to be self-sufficient so we can move forward as complete, sovereign individuals in control of our own lives. Back to what J.P. Sears had to say. We are in a position where the cabal will not be able to hack into us, hack into our brains, and control our lives. We are sovereigns as long as we carry that and remember that. This message is once again really portrayed very well, and I've always referred this in the 5th Neruda interview, where he talks about the coming world of human 3.0. Humanity is moving into a new era. And this new era of humanity will have 2 versions. One is the transhumanist agenda, exactly what Klaus Schwab's, advisor was talking about. People who are controlled and mind controlled by technology. That's one version of humanity. The other version is what is referred to as the sovereign integral. We are sovereign people who are integrated and united with each other in a sense of oneness, and it is that power that allows us to rise above whatever this world is going to bring at us. We are the sovereign integrals. We are the ones that have the ultimate power to take this world into a very healthy direction. So, that's pretty much everything that I wanted to share tonight. It's a little bit of a longer program. And so, Blanca, I'm ready to go back to you and share your thoughts with us.
Well, it's appropriate that was a longer program based on everything that's going on. But there is that common theme, the theme that you ended up with, in that this is a time of great change, and what we're seeing is the dissolution of the control matrix that we got so used to. And now that we're waking up to it and we're realizing we don't want to be a part of it, that's why it's kind of demolishing and dissolving right before our eyes. It's not pretty. Also, this is a time when we're learning the truth of that particular matrix, and it's not pretty either. And so we're witnessing it and recording it, but really, if we want to bring in the new, as you said, the new human 3.0, with more love, more freedom, more abundance, we've got to keep our eye on that prize, even though we're witnessing the dissolution of the old.
Absolutely. Very, very well stated. Well, this was a longer program tonight, and I normally don't like to go quite this long. And I think, Blanca, I might want to just call it a night tonight, and I'm not going to go into the callers tonight. They can basically, this is one of these programs that I'm going to refer to as a reference program. I'm going to highly encourage everybody to watch this and listen to it once or twice or even 3 times, because tonight's reference program is a reference about what's taking place in our world and how we get to rise above it and be a part of the solution instead of the part of the problem. So, is there anything else then that you would like to share with us before we wrap this up tonight?
No, I think it was a real good compilation of what's going on. The nice thing is all these things they used to call conspiracy theories, and now we're seeing it play right before our eyes, so there's no denying it.
Isn't that amazing? We are, aren't we? We're seeing the conspiracy theories coming to a reality, and we are the solution to helping to free ourselves from this old cabal-based world. So, well, thank you folks for joining me here tonight. I should say Blanca and I for joining us tonight. And you're all very, very well loved, and we plan on seeing you next week. Okay, bye-bye.